Welcome everyone to Color Commentary. We are your pauper commentators, Michael Petchek and Adrian Guarzales. How's it going, Adrian?
Pretty good. Not gonna lie, pretty good.
Yeah, recording on the weekends is nice and relaxing. I've like done nothing. I've walked my dog and hung out, and I'm not stressed out from work. So this should be a fun episode.
For all of you who care about my personal life, I am currently in the middle of trying to get the last 2 trophies in Final Fantasy 12 this weekend. So make of that what you will.
Oh God,
I have to complete. I don't know if any of you play, but I got to complete the bestiary and get all the concurrences. But I did already beat trial mode, so don't worry, everyone. That's done.
Those were a whole lot of words that I understand absolutely none of. So.
If you know what I'm talking about, talk to me in the comments.
We talked a little on the pre-show about you at F&M. And I think we just want to hit the highlight. You said you're done with Boros Monarch for the time being.
Yeah. Props to Methodical for doing the Sins Enlistment tech. I actually really like that, and it did win me a game or two last night. Today being Saturday, but the power level of the deck is really not what it was. At least at the local level, and so I think for the time being, I'm going to shelve that deck and maybe try something else.
What are you thinking? Are you going to go back to Affinity, or are you going to try something like Blue-Red Delver?
Blue-Red Delver is very tempting. It is, I think, one of the best decks in the format. It is a deck I have not played either, so it is very tempting to try that deck out. I'm really not 100% sure. I would like to start playing Tron, but one of our other local players just got on Tron, and so I don't just want to, piggyback, but maybe I will anyway. Sorry, Aaron.
You don't want the entire meta to descend into like control hell.
Yeah, which Pats has done before. We're not there right now, but there were a lot of control decks there last night. So for atypically for Pats, there was a lot of control decks recently, I should say. So.
All right, so
we'll see.
Let's get into the upkeep. So first off, I want to talk to people about Original Magic Art. They help bring this show to you every week. They have a great stock of products, both featuring traditional art and original art from the game of Magic the Gathering. And right now, their new acquisitions, they're adding stuff all the time. And they just got in some brand new playmats. And they have the official art for Desolation Angel, Platinum Angel, and Gilder Baron as playmats. They all look great. They're all officially licensed. It's super cool. But definitely go check them out. They have a whole collection of tokens featuring classic art. They've got dice bags, playmats. They've even got art prints for actual stuff. And I actually saw while I was on there today that you can actually get that they had a listing for a undersketch for Anhava Township, which is a terrible Magic card, but they have neat stuff like that. The other big thing is this episode will be releasing on a Sunday, but the Tuesday following it, the 10th of October, they are having another Kickstarter, and this time it is for their new product line, Relics of Wizardry. Josh was on the show a while ago. He talked about it, and we actually had samples sent to us of these things. And the first batch of them were kind of themed for Amonkhet, and they're these little cartouches. And the ones that we got have a +1/+1 counter on one side and a -1/-1 counter on the other side. And what did you think of the one you got, Adrian?
I liked it a lot. The work on it is very intricate. It does look a lot like a cartouche. It's really cool. And one of my favorite things about it is that it has +1/+1 on one side and -1/-1 on another. There are games where you will put a die on something and you won't really, I sometimes forget what the die is supposed to represent. Is it a charge counter? Is it a +1/+1 counter? Is it a -1/-1 counter? So it takes away some of a little bit of the not guesswork, because you should remember, and I bet most of you actually do, but it helps take away some of the confusion that can occur later in the game when maybe you forget what exactly something is supposed to be representing.
Yeah, and for me, at least personally, since I've been picking up a little bit more Commander, there's definitely a lot of board states in that format where it is confusing as all get out. So I'm definitely going to be using this. You should all definitely check out this Kickstarter. We don't have pricing for it yet, but I'm sure these will be pretty reasonably priced, and they are super cool. They're stamped metal, so they're actually fairly heavy for what they are. I think Josh had said they weigh about the same as a typical D6 from what is it, Chessex, the company that is ubiquitous in every game store. But they're super cool. Definitely go check out that Kickstarter. And if this is the sort of thing that you are interested in, another way to help spice up your board states and make them look all nice, I would definitely recommend checking this out. So what do you have for? Oh, do you have something else?
Oh no, I was gonna say yeah, they're sick. But get them.
Oh, and of course, if you go to Original Magic Card and you're thinking about buying something, remember to use the code during checkout Commontary, spelled as it is in our podcast name, and you'll receive 5% off, and we'll get a little kickback. So you're helping keep the lights on our side. You're also getting a 5% discount on all those cool tokens and playmats, and in the future, counters that you're ordering. So what do you got for us, Adrian?
Do you like spending money?
I mean, no, but for the sake of this abstract, yes.
Do you like giving me money?
I mean, I have to do it.
So, yes, you do, because we have to split our Patreon evenly because there are two of us. Sorry, Mike. So yeah, we're on this thing called Patreon. Basically, it's a way for you to give content producers you love and enjoy money. We're at patreon.com/color commentary. Supporting the show, we have tiers as low as $1, tiers as high as $15. $1 is just our undying gratitude in the form of +1+1 counters. But you can actually direct a show. We have a director tier where you can tell us what you want us to talk about, and we have to do it because you gave us money. So check it out, patreon.com/color commentary. It's also on our website. Goes a long way, and thank you out there to all the patrons. You also get access to the episodes early.
Yeah, admittedly this week a little bit less so than usual, but it's usually Wednesday you get to listen to the full unedited episode, including the pre and post shows. All right, so this week we've got a deck tech that we both thought that we had covered, but I'm pretty sure we actually haven't. But we're going to talk about a combo deck that recently did pretty well in the Pauper Challenge. Top 8ing even. And this is Temur Freed from the Reel. And Freed from the Reel is this weird creature-based combo deck that's seen a lot of iterations over the years, but is seeing a new success. And we're going to get into that after the deck tech. But let's get this thing started off. So this, instead of going by card type, I really want to focus on the combo part of this. And the important thing and the namesake of the deck here is this 3-mana aura. So 2 and a blue, Freed from the Reel, enchant creature. And for a blue, you can tap enchanted creature. And for a blue, you can also untap enchanted creature. So if you have a mana dork that can produce at least 2 mana, and one of which is blue, you can go infinite with this. And this has been used in a variety of combos before. And in this case, what they're doing is it's being combined with cards like Fertile Ground, which is a aura 1 and a green enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, controller adds 1 mana of any color to their mana pool. And Gift of Paradise, which is 2 and a green enchant land. When it enters the battlefield, gain 3. And enchanted land has tapped 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool. And you might be sitting there saying, Mike, those aren't creatures.
Mike, there are no creatures.
Well, so the reason this actually works here is the addition of 2 cards, and we got 4 copies of each because it's necessary for the deck to go off. One of them is Life Spark Spellbomb. This is one of the original Mirrodin cycle of spellbombs, and it's a colorless generic, for an artifact, and it has green, sacrifice Life Spark Spellbomb until end of turn. Target land becomes a 3/3 creature that's still a land, and for 1 generic, sacrifice it, draw a card. And then also Wind Zendikon, which is a part of this is a cycle, isn't it? There's one for each color. The Zendikons.
Yes, I think. Yeah, there are. Do they all make planes into creatures?
I think they all do. So this was a cycle. Yeah, okay. I just looked it up. This is a full cycle. There's one for every color. But Wind Zendikon is a blue for a enchantment aura, enchant land. Enchanted land is a 2/2 blue elemental creature token with a creature with flying. It's still a land. When enchanted land is put into a graveyard, return that card to its owner's hand. So what we're doing here is we're trying to make a land that produces 2 mana, and then on top of that, we're trying to turn it into a creature and get freed from the real on it. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And, you know, once you have that, you can go infinite, and you can make as much mana as you want, and you can figure out a way to win the game from there. So there's been different payloads over the years, and there's been different ways to abuse the infinite mana. But this version that allows you to kind of have your creature safe until you need to go off has certainly seen more success in recent years. So let's get into the rest of this. So our win con in this particular version of the deck is a card called Valakut Invoker, and it's 2 and a red for a 2/3, and it has the activated ability 8 generic. Valakut Invoker deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So it's the worst lightning bolt, I think. It's 11 mana for a lightning bolt.
Yeah, and you can't. I mean, yeah, Hammer of Bogarden. No, Hammer of Bogarden's pretty good.
Hammer of Bogarden's cheaper than that, actually.
Okay, then yeah, probably the worst lightning bolt, and it's on a creature.
Yeah, but the big thing about it is it's repeatable. So if you have infinite mana, this does represent infinite damage. So this is, our win con. And then the only other creatures in the deck are a 4 count of Drift of Phantasms, which is 2 and a blue for an 0/5 defender with flying, and it has transmute 1 blue. And for those unfamiliar, transmute is you pay the transmute cost, discard this card, search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost as this card, and then put it into your hand, shuffle your library, play only as a sorcery.
Yeah, so the sorcery speed tutor that lets you get your combo pieces.
Yeah, notably, the reason it's good here is it gets Valakut Invoker, it gets freed from the real, and it gets Gift of Paradise. So it actually has, with Drift of Phantasms, you can get whichever part outside of the Spellbomb and the Zendikon that you need to go off. So it kind of reduces the number of pieces to this combo that you actually need to draw into specifically, and lets you tutor for them instead. Now that said, it is sorcery speed, which does kind of limit you a little bit, but it's also probably a good thing it's not instant speed. Otherwise, this ability would be really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, would be a little too good, maybe.
Yeah. And then when we look at our spells, it's mostly draw spells. We have a 4 count of Ponder, a 4 count of Preordain, and a 4 count of Impulse. I'm going to cover Impulse because it's one of the perhaps not so well-known cards. It's 1 and a blue for a instant. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand, and the rest at the bottom of your library in any order.
Yeah, the original text does say to shuffle, but that has been errated. You do not shuffle anymore.
Yeah, it's really weird. There's also never been like another widely distributed reprint of this. Like, it was in a dual deck, it was in a From the Vault, and it's an F&M promo. But the most common version of it does in fact have the wrong text. It's not even like, because I know, what is it? Out of the new set, Hostage Taker had to be emergency errated because it would break the game if it was the only creature on the board.
Wait, tell me about this. I didn't know about this.
So Hostage Taker is 2 blue-black for a creature that has this ETB effect where it O-rings either a creature or an artifact. And then you can cast it from exile using mana of any color.
Oh, but if you choose itself.
The catch is it used to say a target creature or artifact, and the issue is if it's the only creature or artifact on the board, there's like the thing with the 3 O-rings where if you have 3 O-rings and no other targets, it creates an infinite loop that cannot be broken, and the game ends in a draw. How it worked was because it didn't have the other artifact or creature, it would just create an infinite loop that could not be broken and draw the game. So they issued errata to it pretty much as soon as it got spoiled and made it so that it's another creature.
Interesting.
It's you know, a weird corner case. But Impulse, yes, has been permanently errataed to not shuffle your library. So it is just dig through 4, find the one that's most relevant. And I deeply love this card. I think it's actually one of the best cards for combo decks in Pauper.
Yeah, it's the really strong card.
And then finally we've got Giga Drowse, which is a blue for an instant tap target permanent, but it also has Replicate, which is you can pay the Replicate cost any number of times and copy the spell for each time its Replicate cost was paid, and you can choose new targets for it.
What do you think of 4 of these in the deck? I didn't realize the deck usually ran 4.
4?
Or is that abnormal?
4 seems a little high, but I mean, the line with this is kind of, you know, it either acts as like a weird fog that you have to spend a bunch of mana on, or it taps your opponent out so that you have a turn, because obviously we have no
The combo.
Yeah, we have no force of will. So, you know, if you can tap your opponent out, you're probably good. Then in terms of lands, 2 forests, 11 islands, 2 Simic Guildgate, and 4 Thornwood Falls. So 6 tap lands and 13 untapped sources. Little light on terms of actual lands, but I mean, on the turn you go off, you only really need 4 mana to get this going. I mean, I guess 5 if you're also casting the Zendikon that turn, or activating the spell bomb. So you don't need to hit huge amounts of mana. I don't know. And especially with the mana doublers, the Fertile Grounds and the Gift of Paradise, you don't need actual 5 lands. You just need to be able to generate 5 mana. So
yeah.
Now I do want to like backtrack a little bit here. So previous versions of this deck had run things like Axebane Guardian, which is a cheap defender that taps 4 mana of any color equal to the number of creatures with defender you have in play. And that version kind of required you to have a critical density of creatures on the board. And that always kind of led to the same problem. Like if your opponent had a bunch of removal, you just couldn't combo out.
Yeah. Also, another interesting thing about that deck that this deck is missing is I don't see capsize in this deck. And that was another way that the defender combo deck helped lock its opponent out of the game.
Now, I do want to bring up another thing I'm not seeing here, and I've always been a pretty big fan of it in this list, and that's Train of Thought, which is another replicate spell. It's 1 in a blue, draw a card, and you can copy it for 1 in a blue. So once you go infinite, it means that you don't need to have the payload in your hand. If you can get infinite mana, you can just draw out your entire deck and find the payload versus needing to have Drift of Phantasms or exactly Valakut Invoker in your hand. And personally, I like that, but you know, it is one of those other cards where drawing it early game before you need to combo out, you kind of have a dead card in your hand if you're waiting to use it on the combo turn.
Yeah.
Another,
because it's not, and I don't think it's very useful outside of the combo turn.
No, like at most you're like cycling it and maybe double cycling it at that. Another thing that is good to point out about these replicate spells is it's not like choose a new target for this. It's copy the spell. And so much like Storm, it's very difficult to interact with in a meaningful way on the stack. And I've even seen lists of this using Pyromatics, which is a 2 mana ping target creature or player, but it has replicate again. So this used to be kind of, replicate tribal, but it's moved away from that into like
tribal.
Yeah, a little bit. It's moved away from that and moved into being very win-con light, very draw heavy, and not needing to have a creature around for more than 1 turn. And that does kind of help it against spot removal. Like there's no good way to interact with this deck before they go for the combo, and even when they do, they can they can hopefully giga drowse you and make sure that you can't actually interact with them. And this is, I guess what are your feelings on this deck? Like, how do you, when I say freed to the real, what comes to mind?
I hate to say it, but yet another bad pauper combo deck. I don't think this deck is better or worse than any of the other combo decks out there. That's a personal opinion, though. Obviously, it must be a little bit worse because people are still winning with Rally Gond and Inside Out combo. And I do not remember the last time I saw Free from the Real in a challenge. But I'm just not remembering. I'm sure someone will correct me.
I mean, this list top 8 at a challenge, but it's...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's where I got it from. That's right. Okay, then I guess it's fine.
I mean...
Sorry, everyone.
I mean, it's kind of like... It's fragile, right? Like, if you don't have that Giga Drowse, like, you could be walking into, like, getting massively blown out.
I think this conversation line is actually a pretty good segue into our next topic, which is why we've been seeing so many of these combo decks in the top 8. Decks that are super soft to any form of spot removal.
Yeah. Before we fully move out of this, I do want to just quickly mention that the cost is online, $17, cost in paper, $40. A large chunk of that paper value is tied up in stuff that you're going to use in other decks. Your Spore Frogs in the board, Relic of Progenitus, Ponder Preordain, Freed from the Reels up to $1. And online, you're looking at most of it being in those impulses and the Spore Frogs in the board. So I think this is probably a pretty risk-free buy. A lot of the expensive parts of this can be used in other places. That said, there are a lot of cards in here that are fairly narrow, like Freed from the Real, Wind Zendikon, Life Spark Spellbomb, Drift of Phantasms. But thankfully, a large chunk of those are fairly cheap, both online and in paper. So, there's not a whole lot of risk here, but there's also not a whole lot of upside either. Okay, so why? So let's review. We've seen a Midnight Gond combo deck take down a challenge. We've seen Inside Out combo or Tireless Drive combo do pretty well. We've now seen Freed from the Real. We're missing like blue green arcane, whatever you want to call it. And
the deck is called Pedal Festival.
No.
Yeah, well, that's what it's called. That's what it's called, Mike. I'm sorry. It plays Harvest Festival and Pedals of Insight. It's a Pedal Festival.
All right. So we've seen almost all of these. Oh, we also haven't seen a serious placing by One Land Spy either. But so
some things will never change.
Yeah. It's a little. One Land Spy is a little bit more draw dependent and can lose to itself just by nature of it is a very sort of glass cannon style combo deck that needs very specific things to happen. But why are we seeing all of these weird, fragile combo decks doing pretty well for themselves?
Obviously, we have an idea of what the answer is. We think it is because Stompy is almost 16% of the online winning metagame. And definitely one of the more common decks you will run into on Moto.
Now, why would Stompy lead to a rise in another type of deck?
Stompy is a linear aggro deck where you want to play creatures and beat face. These combo decks are linear combo decks where you do that, except you do it all in one turn. So Stompy, you have these two non-interactive decks who are trying to out Goldfish. You basically have Modern. You have two combo decks trying to out Goldfish each other, or an aggro deck and a combo deck, two linear decks, let's say, and neither of them, like I said, have really that much interaction. So it's not like Stompy can, I guess, Vines at the Vast would, but I mean, that's not exactly combo killer.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they could also side in like instant speed fight spells like Pit Fight, but even there, you're looking to interact with a deck that could, like, let's be real. Giga Drowse, if they resolve it against Stompy and they combo off the next turn, Stompy is likely not going to have anything that interacts with them positively. Like the outs I'm seeing here are if your opponent has Wind Zendikon and you happen to have a pair of gut shots.
Which Stompy does run.
Yeah.
But it's just the idea that without a really good control deck, these linear decks just sort of smash against each other until one of them wins the game.
And I do want to bring up another thing, and this is a lot of the fragility of these combo decks comes down to the fact that a lot of them try to win from a very minimal board. Tireless Tribe, for example, only needs the one copy of Tireless Tribe to actually win the game. You've got stuff like Freed from the Real, which only really cares now about having one creature on board. And even with Rallygon, we were seeing, it could play a mid-range deck, but the combo finish only really needs one creature and one enchantment. So you're looking at these decks that have sort of single points of failure. And the catch is, I think, also with Stompy is with the downshifting of Burning Tree Emissary, we see a deck that can kind of have extraneous bodies that are difficult to deal with for a control deck. The lack of a proper Wrath effect means that you're kind of in this situation as the control deck where you need your removal to line up very specifically against a very specific group of threats. And even if it does, that's not, always going to win you the game. And you wind up with a lot of people running, red-based removal over black-based removal. And back in the day, like prior to, let's say we go back to the time where like Familiars was still a thing. So the pre-Cloud of Fairies ban. Like how does this list win against something like mono black control? The version that was being run at that time with the Defenders. Like, I just don't see how you can hope to resolve Axebane Guardian and another Defender and have it still be around on your turn.
Yeah, and the other thing that a lot of decks aren't using and that you could use against this deck if black was more of a thing is black has a free removal spell in Snuff Out.
It has a free removal spell in Snuff Out. It also has Vendetta and Ghastly Demise, both of which are only a mana.
Yeah, and granted, those cards do say non-black creature, but these decks aren't running black creatures, so who cares?
Yeah, like there are answers to this deck. The issue is that a lot of these combo decks, what they are soft to may not be something that's good against Stompy or Kuldotha Boros/Boros Monarch. Like you're looking at a token deck that kind of invalidates your want to run black removal for edicts and that sort of stuff. And you're also looking at a deck that sometimes just gets a accidental free creature on turn 2, which also does not line up well with edicts and that sort of removal. So I think that because we're in one of those phases of the game where black-based removal is not good, a lot of these decks kind of have an easier time. And it's kind of one of those vicious cycle things where because black removal is not good and because red removal is still, decent, you're kind of seeing this effect where the aggro decks are running slightly more aggressive because they don't have to worry about like with other formats as the aggro deck, you kind of have to be concerned about your control opponent having a Wrath effect or some way to kind of reset or at least 2-for-1 you. And in Pauper, that's a little bit more difficult, and you wind up with there not being as much fear about playing out your threats. Like you can't really just go like 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, and then like whatever if you're worried about your opponent just going turn 4 Wrath of God. Whereas in Pauper, you can just kind of go, all right, I'm just going to play out my hand, and if you have something to stop me, cool, but you probably don't.
Yeah, chances are unlikely. So yeah, format becoming go-karts.
Yeah. I mean, it's not 100% bad. It's just something that
No,
is.
I actually, like we discussed last episode, I do think the format is in a much healthier spot than it has been in a long time. I think the fact that you can run these quirky combo decks is a testament to that.
I mean,
Because like I don't think
it does show that there's more diversity, but I guess my question here is going to be: does Pauper need to be a format where slightly more rickety combo decks have a place, or do you think that it should be something where we have aggro decks, mid-range decks, and control decks, and the occasional combo deck? Because that seems to be the two modes that Pauper has.
I personally am a bigger fan of the second, but I think you will find proponents of each.
Yeah, that's fair. Because like right now, we're not seeing very many control decks. Like we're seeing Morosatron have some success, but like Teachings is completely gone out of the format in a meaningful way. And I would not class Dimir Alchemy as a control deck in the least. It does run a lot of removal and counter spells, but I would not consider it a control deck. So
okay.
we're not in Drake levels of unbalanced, but we are certainly seeing one of the sort of core pillars of any format in terms of overarching archetypes of decks kind of vanish away. And I think it's something that we want to be aware of as we go forward, because I don't know. While
Pauper will always have the problem of not having sweepers.
Yeah. And I mean, we do have pseudo sweepers in the form of Crypt Rats and even Car's Justice, which kind of do similar things.
They're all just so slow, and they don't kill everything is the problem.
Yeah. Or I mean, in the case of Crypt Rats, if it does, you're spending a lot of mana to do so.
Right.
And I guess we've also got Pestilence as well, but that's another entire can of worms. Also, all those cards are black. There's no like if you look at another format like Modern or Legacy, actually let's look at Legacy. Like off the top of my head, in terms of board wipes, we've got the White Wraths, we've got Damnation, Toxic Deluge. There's the White Blue Wrath, Supreme Verdict. Like
realistically, the ones that get played are Toxic Deluge, Supreme Verdict, Pulse. I don't know if you want to count Maelstrom Pulse as a Wrath, pseudo Wrath.
It can be. It's a situational like sometimes it's a weird Vindicate. Sometimes it's
But
Wrath.
The other thing I will say, Legacy is also a deck that also really heavily favors spot removal over Wraths. Like the other one is Terminus, but Terminus and the uncounterable one, you just said the name and I already forgot it. Supreme Verdict are really only found in like the blue-white control decks, obviously. Toxic Deluge slots into a lot more things and is generally brought in against decks like Elves. And Elves is the only go-wide strategy I can really think of in Legacy off the top of my head, because most of the time they want to try and kill you with Deathrite Shaman or Tarmogoyf, or it's a very low creature count. And so spot removal as a whole is generally just better. Whereas in Pauper, we have all these swarm strategies.
Yeah, I was going to point out that you also probably want to bring in your Toxic Deluges against something like it's a not entirely indefensible thing against some of the Storm decks. What is it? I always get these confused. The Epic Storm, that's the blue red one, right? The one that isn't Ad Nauseam Tendrils.
Yeah, one with Epic, whatever. I don't know.
But just kind of the breadth of answers, the fact that we could come up with ones from multiple different colors means that there's a little bit more viability for different colors. And obviously, Legacy is a very blue format. There's no denying that. But another part of that is also the fact that it has Force of Will, which is, as I have pontificated on before, a card that keeps people honest. Like you can run janky, ridiculous combos in Legacy, and that's fine, but there are just going to be some matchups that you lose because your opponent kept Force of Will and a blue card.
On the other side of the coin, you also have mana tax effects, which are also very useful against janky combo decks, like Chalice of the Void, Thorn of Amethyst.
Yeah, all
other
your
ones, fear resistant.
I was going to say all your assorted Death and Taxes pieces also help in those matchups. So I guess what I'm getting at here is Pauper right now has a plethora of really great threats that ask questions, and we're starting to see that the answers aren't lining up as well. And I think that's just something to keep an eye on, just kind of watching as we go to make sure that we don't become a solution of, we don't become a format where it's all questions and no answers, because one of the, I think honestly, one of the most easy indicators of a format being healthy or not is how much decks interact with each other. And, we're seeing like, in the Pauper metagame, there are still decks that do heavily interact with the opponent's board, but like in the Boros versus Stompy matchup, like I've got to imagine almost all of that interaction is one-sided. It's not going to be like, well, Stompy's going to try and interact with you on this level. No, Stompy interacts with you on the level of trying to beat you to death. There's no
and then you have removal.
Yeah. Like I imagine, for example, Boros versus Delver, however, you just talked about playing that matchup. I imagine there's a decent amount of interaction there. Like both of those decks have ways to interact with the opponent outside of just beating them to death in the quickest time frame possible.
Yeah, Boros has a lot of interactive stuff.
So, I mean, again, like, I don't think that the format is in a super bad place right now. I just think that it's starting to show signs of unhealth. And, much like when you start getting a cough, you don't immediately go to the emergency room, but you do go, I should probably make sure that this cough doesn't get worse over the next couple of days, because if it does, I should go to the doctor and get this checked out. And again, I'm not going to call for banning anything. I'm not going to say like the format has been ruined and it's unplayable, because like looking at the top 8 decks on Goldfish right now, there's Stompy, an aggro deck, Boros, a mid-range deck. Is it Delver, a tempo deck? Denrovatron, which I would say is a control/combo deck. Affinity, an aggro combo deck. Burn, a combo deck. Mono blue Delver, a tempo deck, and blue black. So your Gurmag Angler decks, which are, I guess, mid-range, I think would probably be the best way to refer to them. So we are seeing a diversity. We're not seeing that one very specific thing that is control in large numbers.
Yeah.
Except for you, who is apparently living in the one metagame where control is just everywhere.
No, it's not. I think I mentioned it's not even really that big at Pats anymore. We don't have anyone playing teachings. We only have one person really on Tron. I would say I'm playing the most controlling deck there, and I'm playing Boros. So
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think we're still in a good place for the format. I want people to be aware that we're just edging on a tipping point here, and I think it's a good idea to be aware of that before it becomes a problem, especially with how everyone thought Drake was going to be fine for the most part, and then it turned out to be very much not fine.
Yeah, this is different.
Yeah,
it would have been interesting to see Drake and Burning Tree in the same metagame. I wonder how that would have worked out. I guess the format would just have been Stompy and Drake.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think with that, then you just, because Stompy did kind of see a rise during the Drake period anyway, just because it was a deck that counterspells did not interact well with. Your opponent's having to spend 2 mana to deal with a 1 mana threat. So Stompy did do decently well in that metagame, but with Burning Tree, it probably would have been like Because what? Drake wound up at its peak taking up like 25-30% of the metagame.
Yeah, it was huge.
I've got to imagine like Stompy would have been right pulling up with it, because there's no way to say like, I'm going to tech my deck so that I can deal with both of these options that I can think of. Like, there's no good way to like deal with both the super low curve, very aggressive Stompy lists, and also go, yeah, I'm going to stop this difficult to interact with combo. So
yeah,
I think
Drake was such a good deck.
It was very good.
I should have played more Drake. Anyway, neither here nor there.
Now, since we're talking about combo decks, I feel like we would be remiss not to mention the fact that people have started testing with Prosperous Pirates in the Familiars shell.
How's that been going?
So I've been talking to one of our friends, John, and he's said that it feels very good. It doesn't feel unbeatable, but it doesn't feel like the version of it that was going around a month or two ago, because now you can, at least off the back of a single familiar, if you can get your flicker going, you are casting blue spells, and it's got what is it, Godpharaoh's Faithful.
Oh yeah, to gain life.
Yeah, so it does have additional parts that allow it to stabilize a little bit better, and that is helpful to it, but it doesn't patch over everything. It's not like it's not your perfect combo deck that, you know, is uninterruptible and just does its thing and moves on. But at the same time, I think it's better. Like, you know, you're now at the point where, like, what removal actually deals with Prosperous Pirates? Like, as much as, yes, it was a joke to try and interact with Drake a lot of the time, at least that was a boltable combo piece.
Pirates is what, a 3/4? You have to have you have to have Galvanic Blast or black removal. Flame Slash is sorcery, but yeah.
Flame Slash is sorcery,
it still interacts.
Yeah.
It's a little worse, but yeah.
It's just, maybe this is the time where, because with this, you can't really, unlike with the land untappers, you can't do cute things with Karus. This is just always, you get 2 mana. And if you can
that's true,
reduce the cost of your Ghostly Flicker by 2. So if you can get a total of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 combo pieces together, you can get infinite mana.
It's a lot of combo pieces, though.
Yeah,
Drake was 3 and then a finisher.
Yeah, like I mean the other thing is, Drake, when you got that going, like, you would probably preferably have a Muldrifter involved, and that would just let you draw into it. So, and
we discussed it before. The combo was also not what made Drake so hard to play against. The Drake could go Drake Muldrifter, and you were still in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Whereas, what are you doing with Prosperous Pirates? Like, I guess you could go like Prosperous Pirates with 2 familiars on the board, play another. No, you can't even do that. You need 3 familiars to just chain them together. So I think the thing keeping that deck back is just the fact that it's now having to play a fair game versus having cards that, by the nature of untapping lands and the fact that there are now lands that produce more than 1 mana in Pauper, just kind of had an easy time getting to that infinite mana point. Whereas now it actually has to really work at it. So I think that's good. One of the other things that I've just been keeping an eye on is down in, you know me, I love looking through that bottom 1% of the metagame. I
know you do.
I can't help myself. I do want to mention that a while ago there was a Jeskai Skyfisher deck. It wasn't actually that long ago. It was earlier this week. There was a league finish by a Jeskai Skyfisher deck that ran. Fairy Miscreant, Thraben Inspector, Aureox Sunchaser, Skyfisher, Spellstutter Sprite, Ninja of the Deep Hours. Like, we are still seeing people innovating.
Ninjaing back your Thraben Inspector seems good.
Ninjaing back Thraben Inspector, ninjaing back like a Fairy Miscreant and Spellstutter is obviously good enough for like a tier 1 deck. The only thing that's changing here really is that, you know, you're playing some slightly less great options and your mana is much worse. But
yeah, the mana.
Yeah, that no basic land life is a little rough.
Tough. A little tough. I'm looking at it right now.
Does get you access to a lot more artifact lands though. So, you know, your Galv blasts are more likely to be turned on. But I don't know. I think the metagame right now is showing signs of unhealth, but I'm not taking Pauper to the emergency room and going, this needs to be fixed now. But
I think I don't know. We have pretty diverse top 8s. I mean, sure, they're all like tier decks, except, you know, maybe Ralligond, which I guess might be a tier deck if it keeps winning. So I think that the diversification, I will have a problem when the top 8 is like 5 stompy decks. Okay. And that's not the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the most recent challenge here, and, you know, I'm seeing Elves, Burn, Delver, Stompy, Freed combo, Ralligond, Affinity, Burn. Like,
people will always play Burn because Burn is cheap.
People will always play Burn because it's cheap, but also, like, it's usually pretty good. Like, it free rolls a lot of the mid-range decks. So
yeah,
I guess, yeah, I just want people to keep a weather eye open for this, because whether or not the format is actually healthy, I don't think you can disagree with the fact that Burning Tree Emissary has warped the metagame, and I use that phrase knowing it's a loaded phrase. It has warped the metagame in a way. It's not, I'm not going to say it's bad, but the metagame has been irreversibly changed by the presence of this free 2/2.
And I don't think changing the metagame is necessarily a bad thing, but I do see where you're coming from, where there are some Stompy draws that it doesn't, you didn't play bad. Stompy just drew 2 Burning Trees and was able to put the game away.
Yeah, like I think the big thing here is, unlike Drake, which is easy to point to, like if you remove Drake out of the Drake deck, it's no longer as good, because that's how it like had its combo finish. I think Burning Tree Emissary is a lot more insidious because it doesn't, like, your opponent going Burning Tree on turn 2 and then having a follow-up, it seems powerful, but it doesn't always look like it's put the game away, when in reality, I think in a lot of matchups, there are a lot of decks that are just never recovering even from Burning Tree into something else. I think it's just, you know, it's a very minor form of advantage when you look at it in game, but with how Pauper's removal lines up versus threats right now, I think Burning Tree tips it a little bit more in terms towards the threat side in terms of which is favored. So again, I just want to make sure that the format as a whole is paying attention to this, and, you know, I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think that the format is dying. I just think that it's important to look at Burning Tree Emissary and recognize how powerful of a card it is.
Yeah. Okay. I can get behind that.
All right.
We got onto Burning Tree Emissary from our combo deck discussion, but yeah. I mean, that was the whole point. So
yeah, I mean, yeah. And it is cool to see these combo decks winning. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I get a little excited every time I look at a top 8, and it is weird decks doing well. And I think part of that is also, you know, the difference between a league and a challenge, where, you know, the challenge is a much wider field of people, and, you know, Stompy does not do as well against like some of these rogue decks. It is very much teched out to beat the other tiered decks. So I think the challenges are also in part to point, not necessarily blame, but like as a way to explain why we're seeing these kind of tier 2 and 3 decks do well. All right. We're coming up on, a little under an hour. Do you want to do anything to round out the show, or you just want to take us on out of here?
Well, I think that you should guess what's in my pocket. That's the new game we're playing. Just kidding. We could do a little guess the card. A little guess.
Okay.
It's the fan favorite.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, and you're never getting this one, so this is going to be hilarious. It's a 3-drop, 2 and a white for a bird with flying and first strike with the ability white blank gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Activate this ability only once each turn, and it is from Alliances.
Okay,
that's common from Alliances.
That was the point where I figured out I was never guessing this. It's some sort of nope, never getting this.
It's called Wild Aesthir, Aesthir.
Yeah, there's a couple of cards with that in their name. I think it must be some type of bird. That's the only.
It is.
It's the only.
Here's another bad old card from Odyssey. It's an enchantment. 2 double red, so 2 red. Whenever a creature attacks, flip a coin. If you win the flip, the next time that creature would deal combat damage this turn, it deals double that damage instead. If you lose the flip, the next time that creature would deal combat damage this turn, prevent that damage.
Oh no, I do actually know this. It's some like. I know this card because I had to play against it once in EDH, and I hated it. And
was Tyler playing it?
No. He doesn't even listen to this podcast, dude.
I know. I just wanted to call him out.
No, this was with randoms at my local store. Yeah, no, it's like Tide of Battle or something. It's some like,
I mean, that's what the art on the card would definitely imply. It is called Impulsive Maneuvers, but it looks like a bunch of barbarians, like Kamal Pit Fighter types, sort of rattling their weapons and running around.
Yeah. Oh man, that card is super obnoxious. It is up there for like most obnoxious cards you can play in Commander outside of what is it, War's Toll?
There's some some baddies. All right. Let's look at it. Let's do another one. All right. I think you'll get this one.
Okay.
Maybe. Because it's if I just tell you the picture, you might get it. It's the creepy dude and he's looking in the window. It's a blue and a black for a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put one of them to your hand and the rest on top of your library in any order. It's from Ice Age.
Wait, read that one back to me.
Blue and a black sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest on top of your library in any order. It's got a creepy dude looking in a window. I think it's a window.
I don't actually know this. This sounds like Limduel's Vault without the put it on the bottom and pay a life to repeat this. I don't actually know this card.
It does have Limduel in the flavor text. It's called Diabolic Vision.
I actually really, really kind of dig that. So it's an impulse that looks one deeper and keeps the rest on top.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's like an index. It's more like an index where you keep one of the cards.
Yeah. It's index with draw card.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but you don't draw it though. You just put it into your hand, so that's kind of useful.
I guess that is true. There are effects that care about drawing versus putting into hand. So that is
Leovold and Chains of Mephistopheles.
Yeah, let's reference Chains. Let's do that. Let's bring that evil into our life. All right.
Dude, Chains of Mephistopheles is all right. I'm going to read Chains of Mephistopheles to you and to everyone on the show because
hold on. Are you going to read the actual text or are you going to read the Oracle text? Because
I'll read the actual text. And I will tell you why it makes sense. Every time a player draws a card, that player must first discard a card from his or her hand. If there are no cards in the player's hand, take top card from library, these are the actual words, and place it in the graveyard instead of drawing. This enchantment does not apply to the first card drawn by a player during the draw phase. That does, once you know what the card does, that does make sense.
So after your first card you draw in your draw step, you either pitch a card or mill a card before you draw a card.
Hold on. Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, if you try and draw a card, you have to either discard a card, in which case you will draw the card, and if you don't discard a card, you have to mill a card.
So tell me how this works with Sylvan Library.
Does Sylvan Library draw you the card?
Sylvan Library has been reworded to draw you 3 cards, and then you may draw 3 cards during your draw step, and then you have to put 1 back for each. You have to put 2 back, but you can pay 4 life to skip putting it back. So if I remember correctly, what happens if you opt to draw 3, you do have to pitch 3 cards, and
you mill 3,
or mill 3, or some combination of the two.
Leovold is actually much better than this card.
Leovold is much better at just denying your opponent cards. I find that Chains is pretty good for messing up control opponents where they're trying to keep stuff in their hand.
Okay, fair.
Also, they both interact very badly with, very unfavorably with Brainstorm. That's the key bit here. Like, you don't get to Brainstorm for value with either of these. But yeah, Chains is a confusing old card.
Yeah.
All right.
It's confusing. All right, I'll take a sec.
Go for it.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. This podcast is brought to you with the support of our patrons. Please consider supporting us if you like the show. Check this video, the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. We'd like to remind you that if you're listening to this on a platform with reviews, are always appreciated because they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list or an idea for a topic, feel free to contact us either via our website or by emailing us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to Pat's Games and L. Till next week, this is Adrian and Mike, and we are signing off for Color Commentary.